All right, well, we waited long enough. If Mr. Scovetta pops in a little later, we will allow him, yield the floor to him for his amazing presentation and request of the SIG. Hello, everybody. This is the August 23rd edition of my favorite working group, my favorite SIG, the open source SIRT SIG. Do we have any new friends that wanted to introduce themselves and say hello to the group?
Hey there. Sorry, I had camera problems there, but I'm Jill. I got invited by Madison here. I am also at GitHub. I am the director of product security engineering response, which has our bug bounty and our PSIRT. So welcome.
Very nice. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Speaking of GitHub, my other favorite SIG, I encountered a boggle when one of our members was trying to submit a pull request. So in order to correct that situation, I'm asking if you're interested in working with us through submitting PRs and whatnot, if you could give me your IDs so I can get the short-term problem fixed quickly for us, and then ask the foundation folks to address the longer-term problem. So if you're interested in collabing through GitHub, which is where we're going to move the plan, hopefully this week, give me your ID, and I'd be glad to get you added in. All right, I see Mr. Scovetta still is not here. So let us, we finished reviewing the initial draft of the plan, and we all agreed on the language we initially wanted to see. So what Francis and I did is we took that information and kind of reassembled it and tried to organize it a little bit. Our next task is going to be to kind of divide up the plan into smaller focus areas, and then ask some folks to potentially take leadership of that section and lead a small group discussion in fleshing out that plan more fully. So Francis and I got our wires crossed, so we started doing the same thing in two different documents. So Francis's proposal is in the plan that we had been working on. I'll put a link here in the Zoom Meet. And if you go down to proposed short form final version, he also broke the plan up into 3 sections. And then in parallel, I had started to flesh out the same thing, basically copying and pasting what we've already agreed upon into a new structure. And essentially, we both came up with having 3 sections apiece. So I'm wondering, looking at these ideas, I'll put the 3 categories into the meeting notes here in a second. But what does the group feel about chopping up the plan into logical chunks and then kind of dividing and conquering so we can work in parallel on some of this? Emily thinks it's a good idea. Randall agrees. All right, give me a moment to Google. Give me 1 second, and I will have these items into a space that we can look at them. And they're very similar. And I also want to show off a an example of how we're doing this in another SIG, kind of show you how this might, how our next phase potentially will start to look. All right, so in the meeting agenda, I have put the two kind of proposed wordings. I'm not emotionally connected to either one, but essentially what we're doing is we are trying to collect information, understand the problem space, and we've already talked about things we want to do there. And if I already see a couple gaps we'll need to work out, we're going to be defining what the core services and processes of this SIRT would be, and then we'll be turning the thing on, assembling the team and the tools, and we kind of phrase it a little differently. Now, what does the group think about either of those choices? Do you have hopefully a better suggestion for phrasing, or maybe a way to split the work up? When everybody talk at once, it's hard to hear you. Miss Emily?
I think that being able to scope and understand what is and is not going to be allowable is important.
Mhm.
Core services and processes kind of go hand in hand. That's relatively straightforward. Assembling the team and the tools, assembling the team and tools portion of it doesn't sound necessarily operational to me. So like day-to-day processes, which I don't know if that is the intent, that we're not capturing operational day-to-day work, or if we're really just talking about the criteria and the qualifications, because the group in the past had expressed concern about being too specific within the plan document itself and trying to migrate as much of that out as possible. So sticking more functionally to the core scope, the goals and objectives, the guiding principles of the SIRT, and then leaving those detailed implementations to a separate document would be ideal. So for the purposes of this, definitely understanding the problem space, that's the scope. Minimal core services, like no matter what happens, these are the fundamental areas of focus that need to be accomplished. And then beyond that, I'm not sure, and you probably have more insight. What all did you have planned for assembling team and tools and operate?
So my clumsy wording, if you want to go at the lowest link, which is the prototype document, if you want to go down to section 3, what I did is I tried to logically organize the points we'd already discussed. So I put 4, 5, 8, 11, and 12 in there. And I clumsily named it assembling the team and tools. But again, I'm not in love with any names. We can call it whatever we want. But that's how I was thinking about those. Appeared to be more operational and more team focused than talking to Linus about kernel security process, which would be great.
I would recommend then just leaving it as execution, because
Okay.
that gives us enough flexibility to cover those topic areas.
So I think a very good suggestion. Anyone have any other ideas or thoughts about the sections? Are we okay with having 3 sections and kind of shuffling what we've talked about into those sections so that we can focus in on those areas? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good, good, good. Let's see. Didn't to see how far Francis got. He started to ad lib a little more. So he was adding in some things. He was not working specifically off the plan, but he was working off of things like selecting tooling, creating playbooks and whatnot. So he had started to add in some potential details we may not have specifically laid out. If I could what my intention would be while I continue to drag out until Scovetta shows up. Let's see, where'd my chat go? Chat, there you are. What I envision is if I could have you look at this repository real quick. If we like the structure, and we always have the ability, once it's in Git, we can start to file issues and PRs against it. So hopefully the process will be a little easier and more transparent. But what I propose is to load the plan up into a Git repo. We would have a landing page that I'm going to be borrowing material from the original plan for kind of a problem statement and framing the problem. But then for each of these sections, each of the groupings that we agree upon, so like, for example, we turn section 3 into execution, we would have a MD file. So if you want to click on 1.0 for me, just to kind of show how that, and the formatting is terrible. Part of the PR process will be fixing my terrible markdown skills. But what the intention would be is that we would elect a section leader for each one of the 3 sections. People will volunteer to be on a team, and everybody could be on every team if you want. But the idea is we would split off into 3 small group meetings. We would focus on that topic and then report back to this larger group on our progress, if we had any blockers or we needed any group decisions. And then we would take each of the items we talked about, each of the goals. We would provide a layperson explanation of that goal. And then we're going to start documenting the key steps and milestones for each one of those goals, things we are going to do, we're going to commit to do. And then we're going to provide a time and resource estimate. So if the whole 1.1 is my exemplar of how I would like to see the final proposal of the plan look, is that we have the goal, some context around it, some specific things we commit to doing, and then any people, tools, or other resources you might need, we put down as an estimate, and then kind of frame that up as a year 1 versus year 2 item. So what does the group feel about that approach? One thumbs up. Any other thoughts? Any other different suggestions? Yeah, I'm open to other ways of doing this too. Yeah, that's a good point, Emily. She made in the chat. And my dream is we have some verbose text as some of our goals. I would like to shorten those down into smaller statements and then keep that text as part of the explanation. So we're not going to throw out what we've done, but I'd like to kind of, again, have a short focused goal, a few words, and then have that longer text explanation. All right, so the most exciting question for me is, do we have anyone that's interested in being a leader and help kind of coordinate our efforts around any of these 3 areas? Anyone interested in being the liaison facilitator? And since we are missing some people, I'll send a note out to the mailing list to ask for the full group if anyone has any interest. But is anyone here? Because I'll give you first dibs.
Oh, Rob, if no one volunteers, I'll do it. I can do it.
which is there a section you're interested in, Randall?
I think I volunteered for all the sections because I kind of have a lot of time. But I think section 1 is the one that interests me the most.
Okay. And that is cool. And like I mentioned, everyone's free to participate in all the groups, and you'll have the ability through, once we get this moved into GitHub, to be able to comment there. But there's only so much of me to go around, and I can't lead every meeting. And I'd like to give everyone the opportunity to try to lead and help shape this idea, help shape this so we have, a more diverse set of ideas and perspectives in putting this together. So I'll put down Randall as section lead. Do we have anyone that is interested? Who would like to participate in kind of understanding the problem space? Hey, Art, we are talking about, we're dividing up the plan into chunks. And once we do that, once we get agreement upon those sections, I'm going to move it into GitHub so that we can start manipulating it there. And we're going to split off into small groups to focus in on these sections and try to fill out the details of the plan. So instead of, if the goal is do PSIRT, I'd like to have a little more definition and, our commitments on what we're going to be delivering when we do PSIRT, for example. But do we have anyone who's interested in participating in section 1? And again, this won't be a full list right now, but if we could just start to get some idea. I'll put myself down.
Hey, Crow, can you reiterate what exactly section 1 is? I'm sorry, I'm looking at, I've got 4 Google Docs open and I think I'm looking at the wrong one.
So I'm back on our meeting agenda where I posted the 2 different proposals for wording. And we can are we okay with section 1 generally being understand the problem space? And that would be such tasks as talking to current projects, maintainers, security teams about how they do things, kind of collecting that information. It's going to be starting to develop procedures on how we're going to outreach to communities, assisting maintainers through the kind of talking them through the SIRT's offerings. And I feel that this one's probably more external maintainer project focused. And then the next section, the core services, is going to be kind of the operating, like how does the PSIRT work, for example, I think is the initial proposal here. So the first section is more focused on upstreamy things and engaging developers and whatnot. So Jill, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm happy to join in on that first one. Sorry, I think I left it up.
No worries. I got distracted by the shiny. And I'm back on our agenda. If you are interested in kind of being part of that team, and you're not excluded if you don't put your name down right now, but go ahead and we can start to fill this out just so we can have an idea. And what the homework from this is going to be is I'm going to ask the section lead to coordinate a time with those people interested to start to organize themselves on how they want to fill the section out. So for section 2, which I mentioned, is kind of identifying core services and processes, more of the building the mechanisms of the PSIRT. Is anyone interested in being section leader for that to help facilitate that conversation? Art? All right, Art would love to help facilitate that conversation and lead us there.
Maybe like, not love, but yes, I did raise my hand, yes.
Awesome. Do we have anyone that's interested? Go ahead and key your name in. And this will be kind of defining, we need a triage process. What would that look like? And, they would potentially provide recommendations for tooling purchases or whatnot. And the execution piece, which was selecting communications infrastructure, creating playbooks, defining reporting metrics, documenting lessons learned. Is anyone interested in helping lead and develop the execution section for us? Maybe we'll fob that over to the mailing list. Emily?
I would recommend that if we don't have section leads, but there are individuals that are interested in this, completion of one of the previous sections should not prevent us from collaborating moving forward on the last one.
I agree. And I think we'll find someone. And I just need help in project managing this large body of work. And so by delegating out to our enthused participants, that helps us go faster. But yeah, none of these are a blocker. And if we like these sections, what I'll do is I will, Francis and I will move the plan into GitHub. That way you can see how we've shuffled things around and how we'd like it structured. And then the section lead can go ahead and schedule those small group meetings to start to focus in on getting the details and thinking through a realistic request for resources, not just a swag. All right. Mr. Scovetta, have you shown up? Nope. And then, so what I will do is after this call, I'll move this to GitHub. I'll send a note out to the mailing list. So everyone has that information. You can take a look at it. I will get everyone that gave me their GitHub ID. I will get you added with an ability to make changes. And we will take the next meeting to review the structure, making sure we think we got things in the right place. And then I would propose after our next meeting that we either move this call to biweekly for updates for the smaller groups, or we split this call into 3 sections and figure out a way, 20 minutes per small team to talk about, to jam on their stuff. Does that sound okay or not? Any alternate suggestions?
We can try it and see how that feels.
Yeah, but the idea was I don't want to overburden the team with meetings. I want to burden us with doing the work and moving this forward so we can accelerate things. And if we, by giving you back an hour here every other week, that might allow people more time to collaborate. All right, so I apologize for being a little disorganized. I was hoping that our presentation would have soaked up 30 minutes or so. I will ask Mike to come back at a future call. He has an interesting proposal. He is interested in having this group man and operate a SIEM monitoring the open source ecosystem. And I'll let Mike talk more about that. And I would like the group to kind of consider his proposal and see if that's something we feel is work that we are interested in including in the SIRT efforts, or if it's something we think is probably best placed elsewhere. And I believe he gave you a link to the presentation. So if you want to take a look at that, get a pre-read, that way you can have a little bit more educated questions when he does arrive. Does anyone have Francis?
So why should we monitor a scene?
I am not able to tell you that because it is not my proposal. I don't want to color anyone's opinion on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I have my own feels I'll reserve. But he feels that this would be a great place for that work to happen. And I just want to give him his day in court, so to speak, to propose to us and kind of explain what he's interested in put his ideas. And
We
the
should
group is
ask for a
free
lot.
to accept those ideas or provide a counter proposal to him.
We should ask for a lot of money in exchange.
I know I won't be sitting watching a seam scraping the internet. But if someone's interested in doing that work, they think it aligns with this, awesome. Do we have any other, does anyone have any opens or any ideas or comments about how we're moving forward? Any changes they'd like to see made? All right, we will adjourn for today. That will give me time to start my brushing off my amazing markdown powers. So thank you all for attending. You'll see a proposal for how things will be organized in Git, and then you'll see a mail on the mailing list soliciting for more help and leadership of the Section 3 execution. So thank you all for coming today. And again, any last comments or feedback? All right. Enjoy the rest of your days. Cheers.
Bye all.